What's your name?
Aaron. Tiff. So you're Mac, right?
So?
You're the first paper boy around here who wasn't
A boy? You must be the Brandman kid.
KJ.
My dad says you people own everything.
You people?
She's new.
All right, Big Mac. Let's go.
How are you doing, guys? Nice to see you.
Hey!
We're great.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Well, congratulations on the series. It's fantastic. I've seen the first few episodes. It's fantastic. But I mean, being kind of so young, how did you kind of get yourselves into that mindset of someone from the 80s getting thrown into kind of the present day? I mean, did you get a crash course into the 80s? And what was kind of the things that most surprised you about the 80s that you didn't even believe really existed back then?
Right. One of the surprising things was realizing the bigotry that existed and
Right.
making sure that the 80s were not glorified on our show, because it's so easy to pay attention to the hair and the clothes and the music and that pop culture that existed, but we are focusing on highlighting the way the 80s actually were and how it wasn't great for everybody. And so we had a blast filming it, but it was in our filming process, but we definitely had to take pauses and realize, we're not trying to make this seem like it was the most incredible thing, and then keep that in mind while we traveled, and thinking how would these characters who grew up in this time experience the social changes of these new places.
Every time has its problems. Certainly the 80s were not an exception. Now is not an exception either. But I think as far as people being cruel, I think people have always been cruel, and a lot of people always will be, I think. But it was interesting to actually explore that and sort of be on the giving end of it.
Yeah, and it was also really cool that we had the source material of the comic books to look into and dive deep into the characters and see their dynamic. And I think that the show does a really good job with matching that aesthetically.
Yeah, I agree with them completely. The 80s was not a great time for everyone, but I think the show represented it really well, and it was a blast to film it. Like, I love these guys. They're amazing. And our set design team did an amazing job of recreating the 80s so perfectly. It didn't even feel like we were acting like we were there. We were just there. And I think what surprised me was that there were actual, paper kids delivering stuff. Like,
Kids made out of paper, can you believe it?
They would go and, deliver at, 4 in the morning in random people's neighborhoods and just throw it on the door for a quarter. And they just get in the car now and they throw it on my doorstep. They weren't on bikes, and they do it in, midday. So that's, surprised me that actually happened.
To be honest, I wasn't surprised by a whole lot, as I've grown up around a lot of 80s culture. However, it was a really thrilling experience to actually be dropped into it with the set decoration and the costume, and even some of the language. I just think it was the show does a great job. They completely immersed us in it, and it was just fascinating to actually be there.
What is that? Why does the sky look like that?
Move! Let's get out of here!
Did they actually kind of tell you to do anything to make sure that you kept in that mindset? Maybe to kind of take your telephones off you, your mobiles off you, or kind of just to kind of immerse you completely in kind of the idea that you were from the 80s?
I remember in the big action scene in the 80s, they'd be like, okay, phones off for this really big scene for the next 2 or 3 hours. Just be in the present, be with each other. I want you to just remain in your characters. Be Tiffany, be KJ, be Mac, be Aaron, be who you are.
Yourself.
And
Get into it.
It was that. But then we also did little work with our director where she gave us a journal and we would write stuff about the 80s that would relate to our characters, and that really, really helped.
Yeah. And a lot of our set design and our props were from the 80s, so that helped to transport us to that time.
You're kind of the feistiest one of the kind of the show, even though I feel what I've seen so far is a bit of a facade. No, I don't know if it's true or not. We'll see as it plays out. But you come across as kind of the feistiest one. How did you go about that with the other three paper girls to kind of stand out from those three, if you will, whilst at the same time fitting in with them and kind of creating this camaraderie between the four of you?
Well, I think just the writing itself of the series and of the comic book series was a really great. It was a really perfect roadmap for finding that nice balance of the aggression versus she also is versus how do I say this, like her aggressive nature and also her warmer side, I should say. So just the script itself was a really great tool in terms of navigating that line, that balance, you know. And the other girls are fantastic. They were always, you know, we're always in the moment together, and I think that they navigated it very well, helping, you know. Sorry, I'm completely rambling. Sorry about that.
No, I know. I mean, they helped you to kind of find that fine line now between.
Yes, exactly.
I know what you mean, yeah. And then, I mean, I don't want to give it too much, give anything away, obviously, but I mean, your kind of story arc is, I love the way that, because you kind of had a poorer upbringing, if you will, you were kind of more excited that you actually got this chance to kind of jump forward and kind of forget about the past. But then things kind of turn pear-shaped. I don't want to say anything what happens. So you get to kind of really discover two sides of the future that I didn't expect you to. That must have been really fascinating for you and opened your eyes. But what kind of things did you kind of look to for inspiration for that kind of journey that you go on without giving too much away?
Well, first of all, I'm so happy that you noticed that Mac is almost excited about this adventure that they've just been thrown into. And I would say, as far as inspiration for you mean when they get to the future?
Just to kind of, she's excited that she's there, but then she's kind of, things play out not maybe quite as what she'd hoped for. Maybe then things will, I haven't seen all of it, but obviously then maybe something will kind of turn around and maybe she wants to go back to where she was from. I don't know.
Right.
So how did you kind of approach that?
Oh yeah, I mean, just the script itself, and I think that once again, that was a great blueprint. And I just sort of, you know, I was brought up in the Meisner technique and just living truthfully under imaginary circumstances, just allowing the situation to affect me and listening and just reacting organically and naturally. And so yeah, I would probably say that's how I approached it, just basically understanding where Matt comes from and where she hopes that she'll end up going.
Hey! Who's there?
What are you doing in my house?
What are you doing in my house?
I live here.
No, I live here.
That's her.
Holy shit.
And then something that I loved about this show is the fact that in most kind of time travel films and series, the characters try not to kind of socialize with themselves or with characters that they're related to. But here we really get to see you kind of deep dive into this. I mean, from the trailer we've seen, obviously, one of you does meet your own self in the future. That must have been really kind of difficult to get the right balance and kind of rehearse and prepare not to kind of speak to yourself in 30 years. And it must have made you think what you would ask yourselves in 30 years. What kind of ideas did you kind of get in mind that you would like to ask your future self if you met someone 30 years from your future?
I think after all the events that happen in Paper Girls, when they do meet their older selves, maybe it's best to just observe from afar. But if I did have to say something to my older self, it would just to remember who you are inside and to never forget where you came from.
I would go and talk to myself, and I would have to verify that it was me first, because I wouldn't want to like tell all this to a random person. Obviously, they'd think I was crazy, but I would ask like a trick question only I would know, and then I'd ask like, are we happy? Because even if we didn't end up how I like would have wanted, I just want to be happy in the end. So, are you happy? Are you good? What's a good movie that I should be prepared for? And what stocks should I invest in now? So it'd be that.
I think I just have a lot of, hopes right now. So I'm well aware that my hopes may change, but I think I'm just curious to see, like, are you still living in New York? Do you have a Dalmatian? Do you are you still singing? Like all these things that I that I hope to still be doing in the future, or have, or be doing, and I just like some confirmation or not. So I'd ask some of those.
Sadly, that's a wrap. We're out of time. So thank you so much for your time. I wish you the best of luck with the series. I'm sure it's going to go down really well. I'm loving it so far. And fingers crossed we get to talk about a second season sometime soon.
We hope.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you for your time.
All right.
Thanks
Take
for
care.
having
Thanks very
me.
much. All the best. Cheers, then. Bye now.
Thank you.
All right. All the best. Cheers then. Bye now.
This right here is the end of the universe.
We're paper girls, so we stick together.
The future you is not all that bad. She did give you that rad shirt, which says dumb on it.